Good afternoon and welcome to Hendricks Chapel, the spiritual heart of Syracuse University. Today we present Music and Message. This is a weekly series that features musical performances and spoken reflection from diverse religious and spiritual perspectives. We gather for Music and Message every Sunday afternoon at 4:00 p.m. throughout the academic year. And as we begin, I acknowledge with respect the Onondaga Nation, firekeepers of the Haudenosaunee, the indigenous people on whose ancestral lands Syracuse University now stands. My name is Brian Konkol. I serve as Dean of Hendricks Chapel here at Syracuse University, and thank you all for being here with us, either in person here at Hendricks Chapel or those tuning in online and in spirit through our broadcast. Today we give thanks for those participating in our program this afternoon: University organist Dr. Ann Laver, organist Emery Schramm, our inaugural Hendricks Chapel organ scholar, Joseph Osei Little, and of course the Hendricks Chapel choir led by Dr. Pepe Calvar. We give thanks for Alex Snow, Brian and Logan Simons, and all who help to make these gatherings possible. For our Music and Message program this afternoon, we are honored to feature musical selections from Calvin Hampton, an American composer and organist who received his master's degree here at Syracuse University in 1963. Following his time here at Syracuse, Hampton would lead the music program at Calvary Episcopal Church in Manhattan until his untimely death at the age of 45. Hampton was a masterful hymn writer with a gift of melody, which is why today we invite all gathered to join the choir in the singing of two of Hampton's best-known hymns, All People That on Earth Do Dwell, and There's a Wideness in God's Mercy. Thank you to all for being here today. We hope you enjoy. Thank you, Emery. One of the things we've been speaking about a lot over the past couple weeks at Hendricks Chapel is about presence. Being present. And this idea that when you're present, miracles can happen. When you're present, miracles can happen. For example, there's a story about the Reverend Jeffrey Brown, who I want to share with you today. In 1992, Reverend Brown was a newcomer to the Boston community, and his first year, there were 72 young people killed, a 230% increase from just 3 years before. And as this problem of youth violence increased in the Boston area, a group of area ministers came together and decided to discuss this urgent matter. And just days before this meeting, which was supposed to happen at this church, during a funeral at that exact church, a group came into that church and stabbed a young man 9 times. In response to this rise of violence, 300 area clergy came to this meeting at the site of this most recent crime to discuss youth violence in the Boston area and to talk through solutions to this growing problem. And as Reverend Brown would later articulate, the meeting transpired in a very predictable way. As he said, preachers just like to preach. So 300 clergy came together, and basically one stood up after the other to talk, and then more talked, and then more talked, and then another person talked, and then another person talked, and another, and another, and another, and another. They discussed how they're going to meet, when they're going to meet next, who's going to meet to decide what that meeting should look like. And eventually, Reverend Brown tried something different. He said, what if we all stopped preaching and started listening? Instead of talking about these young people, what if we should actually be present with these young people? So instead of seeing them as problems, we could start seeing them as partners. So instead of speaking out, Reverend Brown decided to show up. He decided to be present. So that next Friday night at 10 o'clock p.m., he and a small group started walking the streets. Now, they came to this conclusion because they realized that presence is about being on someone else's turf, on someone else's terms. And they started walking. Now, of course, they were met with a degree of skepticism. These young people had seen this before. Some public figure, some leader comes to be with them, usually trailed by a group of cameras and publicists and so on and so forth. They've seen this before. But Reverend Brown kept showing up and showing up and showing up and showing up, week after week, month after month, not to preach, but to listen. And to listen not with the intent to respond, but to listen with the intent to understand. And what happened was a miracle. These young people started working with Reverend Brown. They drafted something called the 10-Point Coalition. And it was a movement that shocked the city of Boston and captured the nation's attention. From 72 violent youth deaths in 1990 to 15 in 1999, a 79% drop. Because he decided to show up and be present and to stop preaching and to start listening. Miracles happen when we choose to be present. Now, what is presence? The first thing is to say that there's a difference between presence and attendance, right? We've all been there, right? When we've been in attendance, but we're not really present, right? Attendance is when you are physically in proximity to the action. Presence is when you are actively a part of the action. I've had some of you in class. I know some of you can be attendant, but not necessarily present, right? And the same is true for me. The same is true for me. I've been there. And we have so many tools at our disposal, right? Where all of a sudden our attention is taken into all these different directions, right? The reality is that most of us are very, very bad multitaskers. And when we try to do everything at once, what it means is we do nothing all that well. I think presence is the doing of being. The doing of being. What that means is that presence is an action. Presence requires effort. It is an active choice about being here and being here now. Presence is about paying attention. I was reminded of this recently. Think about that phrase, paying attention. That's a cost. And if I'm paying attention to you, it means I'm not paying attention to that thing. It means every yes requires a no. And like any bank account, there's a limited number of things that I can pay attention to. And is there not any better gift than someone else's attention? When someone's with you, and they see you, and they hear you. If value is about scarcity, I would say there are few things more valuable than attention, presence. When someone is with you and they're nowhere else. Because if presence is the doing of being, I suppose absence is the act of being somewhere else. Presence requires our attention. It requires our authenticity. It requires being approachable and approaching. And quite frankly, presence requires this assurance that when we are truly with others, with them, that miracles can happen. Attention, authenticity, approachability, and assurance. And we know that when we are present with others and others are present with us, there are so many wonderful benefits. We know that presence improves our health and well-being. It connects us with our purpose. Presence builds trust. Presence provides perspective. Presence produces presence, meaning that if I'm present with you, you're more present with me, and vice versa. And presence builds community. It builds community. A few months ago, in the midst of a really challenging time, I read a wonderful article about leadership written by our very own Vice Chancellor, Mike Haney. And Dr. Haney wrote this article where he quoted Maya Angelou, and it has to do with presence. It talked about how people don't necessarily remember what you say, and people don't necessarily remember what you do. But people do tend to remember how you made them feel. So as we think about presence, I invite all of us to think today, how do you want others to feel after they've been in your presence? How do you want others to feel after they've been in your presence? I would hope that you would want people to feel heard. I would hope that you would want people to feel valued. I would hope that you would want people to feel that you deeply care about them. And as you think about how you want people to feel after they've been in your presence, I therefore invite you to think about who you need to be for them to feel that way. Because it's not simply about helping people to feel heard, but it's about people being heard. It's not just about people feeling valued, but it's about people being valued. So my task for you this week is as you're considering how you want others to feel and to be in your presence, is an act that I've been trying over the last couple months, and I'm going to share it with you today. Every morning, before I write my to-do list, I write a different kind of list. I call it my to-be list, and I invite you to try the same. I don't know about you, but I find that I'm rarely in charge of my to-do list. I get one call from my boss, and my to-do list changes dramatically for that day, right? And I imagine there's other people in your life that just one phone call and your to-be list changes. But I'm in charge of my to-be list. That belongs to me. And every morning I can wake up and say, today I'm going to be enthusiastic. Today I'm going to be patient. I'm going to be strong. I'm going to be faithful. I'm going to be honest. And there is no phone call that can change that without my permission. So I invite you to craft your to-be list this week. And I hope one of them on that list is invite yourself to be present. Be present. Be here now. And as you find yourself being present with others, you will find that the impact of your presence will last far after your absence. So today I invite you to consider how you want others to feel when they have spent time with you, and in doing so, craft your to-be list, because miracles can happen by the simple act of showing up, being present, and one day at a time, one choice at a time, you and I can actually make the world a little bit of a better place. Let's be present. Thank you. Thank you again for everyone for being with us here this afternoon. Immediately after the program, we will have a reception in the entryway to Hendricks Chapel. We invite all to attend next week, where we'll feature a special performance by the New York City-based group Warp Trio. Their program is called Black Voices, a multidisciplinary performance that integrates classical, jazz, hip-hop, and spoken word, dance, and song, presenting works all created by African-American artists. All are invited to attend next week. And in the meantime, please receive this blessing, which again is a blessing for presence. Awaken to the mystery of being here and enter the quiet immensity of your own presence. Have joy and peace in the temple of your senses. Receive encouragement when new frontiers beckon. Respond to the call of your gift and the courage to follow its path. Let the flame of anger free you of all falsity. May warmth of heart keep your presence aflame. May anxiety never linger about you. May your outer dignity mirror an inner dignity of soul. Take time to celebrate the quiet miracles that seek no attention. Be consoled in the secret symmetry of your soul. May you experience each day as a sacred gift woven around the heart of wonder.